Hello everyone, welcome back once again. This time we're in our fifth unit, the Revolutionary War. This is going to be a fairly quick video and we'll get started right away. Revolutionary War starts in 1775 with the Battle of Lexington and Concord and ends in 1783 with the Treaty of Paris officially granting the United States of America its independence. And so in our last unit, we looked at a lot of the things that kind of increased the tension between the colonists and the British government. Well, in this unit, the colonists and the British government are going to have it out. They're going to have it out on the battlefield. And if the colonists win, they win their independence. If the colonists lose, well, they're probably going back under British rule, and things are probably going to get even worse for them. Obviously, we know that the colonists win, they win their independence, the United States becomes a free and independent country. Starting in 1775, once again, the first battle of the Revolutionary War with the Battle of Lexington and Concord. Now, surprisingly, it's not until after this battle that the colonists then declare their independence. The Declaration of Independence was written in 1776 by Thomas Jefferson, signed by many other founding fathers. Eventually, a lot of these delegates at the Continental Convention realized that they cannot figure out their differences between them and Britain, that at the present rate, the only course of action is to declare independence and to go to war. So in 1776, the colonies go all in on their independence, all in on this war against Britain. In 1777 is the first major victory for the colonists, and that comes with the Battle of Saratoga, kind of known as the turning point of the war. After 1777, the Americans are able to gain some momentum and ultimately able to win the war. In 1781, Britain finally surrenders at the Battle of Yorktown, and just a few years later, the Treaty of Paris is signed, recognizing the Americans' independence from Britain. So how did it all go down? How were the colonists able to upset and really kind of take victory from one of the world's premier armies? We'll skip over the vocab and we'll start right away with some of the advantages. For Britain, their main advantage, they had money. They had a lot of money to spend on the war. Obviously, the British government was in debt, but they were willing to do whatever it took to win. Training was huge. The British soldiers were professionals. They were experienced. They knew what they were doing, and this was really their job, was to be a soldier. And the British also had foreign aid. They were aided by the Hessians, who were German mercenaries. They were kind of paid for by the British government to fight alongside the British soldiers. And the British government also was able to recruit Native Americans to fight for them as well. The Americans had only a few advantages, but they were important. First, they had home field advantage. They knew the land. They lived on the land. Secondly, they had motivation. Perhaps most importantly, they were fighting for their liberty, for their rights. They were fighting for their independence. And eventually the Americans were able to get some foreign aid, and this aid would be hugely important for the colonists in order to gain victory. So the foreign aid came from the French. So some of the key battles, obviously the start of the war with the Battle of Lexington and Concord, but the first victory that the colonists were able to officially secure was the Battle of Trenton, where they won a surprise victory the day after Christmas against a group of Hessian mercenaries, against the German soldiers that were hired by the British government. So Washington was able to lead the colonists to victory at the Battle of Trenton. Well, for the first couple years of the war, things weren't going so great for the colonists. They were unprepared, they were not well funded, they were not well organized. It's not until they were able to gain a really important victory at the Battle of Saratoga. This was kind of the turning point of the war, since France decided to ally with the colonists. France stayed out of coming alongside the colonists up until this point. the French did not want to fight a war that they were going to lose. So after the Battle of Saratoga, the French looked at the American colonists and said, I think they can win. And so the French decided to ally with the colonists at this point, knowing that the colonists had a strong possibility of actually winning this Revolutionary War, this war for independence. So this is kind of the turning point of the war. And the war, once again, it concludes with the Battle of Yorktown, the last major battle, convinced the British to stop fighting the Americans, and convinced the British government to sit down at the Treaty of Paris in 1783 and do three things. Number one, give the United States their independence. Number two, the western boundary of the United States would be the Mississippi River. All of the British territory in North America would be given over to the United States. And lastly, each side would repay debts owed to the other. So the colonists had to repay debts to the British government, and likewise the British government had to repay debts to the colonists. But at the end, in 1783, we have a free and independent, for the first time ever, officially recognized United States of America. In our next unit, we'll check out and we'll see how the United States gets off in its first attempt at government, its first attempt at trying to figure out how to be a successful country. So we'll tune in next time. Until then, signing off, Mr. Tuttle.